Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of Meet La Prensa. We have a very special guest again for you tonight. She is a television producer in New York City, Erenia Michell. Welcome, Erenia.
Thank you. Gracias, Pablito. So good to see you.
So good to see you, too. So we miss you, first of all, in Washington so very much. What can you tell us about the newsrooms of New York City? What are the differences between the newsrooms up there and the newsrooms that you became so used to down here through your, 7 years down here?
Correct. Yes. I was in DC just close to 7 years. Some of the best, years of my life because I learned so much as far as career-wise. DC is a great town. You learn so much. And I thought, those were the pros, but you lived in New York City and it's another level. It's, it's all about, the fight. You're all the top of your game at this point. And you're all just, trying to make the news happen every day and, at the best of your ability. And you're all trying to yes, fight against the other networks and beat the other networks, but you're also kind of competing against yourselves and amongst your teammates and your colleagues. But it's a whole other level. I, learned so much from DC and loved my time there. And I mean, those guys are pros, covering local news is national news in DC. And, it affects everyone, with what's going on the Hill and at the White House. So that's, one level. And then you come to New York and it's a whole other ball game with just the grit and the grind that you get here, and you feel it. It's in the air, even right now during a pandemic where it's not exactly normal circumstances. You still have the New York energy, the New York fight, and the fashion and the style. It's all still here.
Heck yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this: news is not the only thing that New York is sort of the top of the world. New York is also the top of the world about something else you're really passionate about, theater. So tell me, have you gotten to see any Broadway shows yet? I know that, there've been a lot of them have been closed for winter, or excuse me, for the pandemic. But have you gotten to see anything yet so far? Any live music, any live Broadway?
No, sadly, no. Just got an update that Broadway won't really be officially reopening, I guess you can say, until September. Because of the pandemic, everybody's taking this, very seriously and making sure we're all safe. And, theater productions, Broadway productions are huge, especially if you've seen one, what goes into it. I mean, the cast, there's so many involved and, behind the stage, front of the stage. It's a big production and it takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of money. So for them to just open up, at 20%, 30%, it's, it doesn't
not happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got to wait till September when, we can, the theaters can open up to more, to more patrons and get more, bodies in through the door. So
when September comes and you become a patron of the theater, if you will, what would you say? What are the first 5 shows you just can't wait to see as a brand new New Yorker who's passionate about Broadway?
Oh, so passionate. That's a great question because I feel like there's so many. Top of my list, which was top of my list right before we went into shutdown. So it's a show that I was so eager to see and bummed I still haven't seen it. So once the tickets go on sale, I'll try to be the first in line. But that would be Moulin Rouge, starring an amazing Latina, Karen Olivia, who won the Tony a couple years ago, playing Anita in West Side Story. So she's amazing. I've always wanted to see her live, so I'm really excited to see her in Moulin Rouge. So that would be definitely number 1. Next would be the West Side Story revival. Speaking of West Side Story, that's getting its revival, was last year, so I'm hoping it'll continue and to 2021 and beyond. I'm super excited to see that. I've seen local productions and it's just incredible live. Next, probably Music Man. I still want to see Frozen. I think everybody has seen Frozen but me, so I still want to see it. I'm a big Disney musical fan. And Hamilton. I've never seen Hamilton, which I think always blows everybody's mind. As big of a Broadway fan that I am, I've always kept watching Hamilton on a Broadway stage versus in DC or at another town. So this is this is my chance. I got to do it once those theater doors open.
So your Instagram says that you're a self-proclaimed fashionista. So let's say, what advice would you have fashion-wise as someone who comes from DC to New York? What are some of the pointers that you would give somebody of like sort of what to buy, what to wear when they first hit the ground running in the Big Apple?
Ooh, I mean, I guess first off, it depends what time of year you're moving. But I think because, you know, a good coat, like right now it's April and you'd think we'd be done with winter, we're not. And it's super cold. So as long as you have one good coat, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But I'm always a big proponent of basics. So I feel as long as you got a good pair of jeans, a good shirt, you know, I don't know, a blazer, you can rock that anywhere. You know, you put your own personal flair to it. But just good basics, good white tee, you know, good, like for girls, a little black dress. The basics are going to always, you know, take you from season to season. So just have some good
Got it.
basics. It'll get you through New York, DC, LA, Hawaii. So,
Hawaii. Okay, well, that's actually an interesting segue because you come from a super interesting background to me. You're part Nicaraguan, you have Nicaraguan heritage, but you grew up on Hawaii. So, Erenia, tell us, like, why journalism? What about this background drew you to the craft?
well, it was sort of roundabout way. I went into college thinking I wanted to be like my dad. My dad is a psychologist and figured that was kind of the route I was going to go in healthcare. My sister is a veterinarian and she always loved animals. And when she was little, like she always knew that was, you know, her passion and what she was going to do. My grandfather was an optometrist. So, you know, it was kind of like that was the family thing. So what was Erenia going to do? She was going to also do that. And she was going to, you know, either do psychiatry or I was going to do nursing. So when I was in college, my freshman year, I quickly learned science was not for me. As much as I even loved it in high school, I got to college and it was a big no. So I ended up taking just a random elective um, called Mass Media and Society in the journalism school and fell completely in love with it. And it was like the light bulb went on and I realized like this is what I was meant to do. I always growing up, I was an avid reader. I loved writing, and it just all kind of clicked when I took that class. And I realized, okay, I'm not going to help people as a nurse, but the way that the media influences our lives every single day is, I mean, just as important as, you know, those on the front lines. I mean, I think doctors do a lot more like what my dad did, what my grandfather, my sister do are like incredible work. But I mean, the effect, the impact of what the media does to everyone is also almost like up there, just as important. So, and I got all of this through that class, and I just figured, well, this is my way of bringing all of that together now. And, you know, journalism was it.
So you have been in the business now for about a decade, almost a decade at least.
Yep.
Of all the stories you've worked on in that time, which would you say really stand out? Like the ones that are sort of like the ones that you're most passionate about, the ones you like to like this, the when looking back on your journalism career, what are your fondest memories of of being in the field at such a high level, like the one where you work?
Oh yeah. I mean, gosh, being on the field, I've had so many great opportunities right before we went into the pandemic. You know, I was in Miami for the Super Bowl. That was an amazing experience. Getting to be around all these, I mean, you know, amazing athletes, like at the top of their game, and they're just walking around, and you're just hanging out with them. And that was a great experience. A lot of hard work, but you know, in the end, it's an experience you take away that never will never leave you. And the same time, first time I ever went to Miami was to cover a hurricane. So, you know, that was, I mean, a crazy experience in of itself because of it being a hurricane. But again, a lot of hard work, but it's an experience I'll always have with me. I honestly hope I get to do more. It's just the thrill of being in the news business. Like you're going into the fire, but you think you're crazy, but you actually, that adrenaline, like that rush is what, you know, it drives us to do what we do as journalists. But as far as like on the producing end and on the booking end, I mean, I've been able to book some amazing guests like the last, I mean, 5 years at Fox and, you know, my decade of work. I mean, the ones that always like stand out are unfortunately, like really the tough ones and the sad ones. A guest that I always think of when people ask me about, oh, what's your favorite guest or what was one that most impacted you? I would probably say like I had a father who lost their daughter in a school shooting. And those are like, they're heart wrenching, and they I don't know, they put things into perspective. Like at the end of the day, like you're telling stories, and these stories do matter. And I always feel really, I don't know, I guess grateful for what I do, what I get to do, get to cover those stories and give that platform to like a family like that who, you know, is trying to advocate for, you know, gun rights or whatever it is. Or, you know, gun advocacy. So, you know, that's on the tougher end. And I've gotten to do the lighter stuff, like have the, you know, the coach of LSU join my anchor and, you know, talk about winning the national championship, which was amazing. So, you know, you have the fun, the light stuff, and you do have the heavier stuff. But they both, in the end, they're gratifying, they're fun, and, you know, it's the news. You get it all.
Right. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned pivoting from psychology as a student to journalism. We actually had a guest on just a couple of weeks ago who did the very same thing. Marita Jesus, a staff photographer at the Houston Chronicle, pivoted from psychology as a study as an undergrad to photojournalism after taking a photography class that inspired her. So I think that Marie is definitely somebody who I would consider one of the most underrated workers in the American news business, which is a question we ask all of our guests. Who are the most underrated workers in the American news business? Take it away, Erenia.
Well, as a producer, like this is being very, very general, but I feel like producers and I mean the camera guys, our stage directors, like the guys that do sound, like, you know, just the guys in the background, like those are, I feel like, the most underrated. There's so much that goes into a show, whether it's a special or, you know, your daily like half-hour morning show or hour afternoon show. There's so much that goes into that 60 minutes or 30 minutes. And so I feel like, you know, the guys in the background are always very underrated. And I'm always so appreciative of them. And like editors, photogs, you know, those are my guys. But I'm going to be really specific. I do want to give a shout out to one of our like newer correspondents at Fox. I think she's doing amazing work right now. Her name is Aisha Hasni. She's Pakistani, born in Pakistan, and grew up in, I think in Indiana. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But she is doing amazing work here at Fox. She recently grabbed an exclusive that I got to produce. Her segment I got to produce on my show, that she was able to interview one of the nursing home administrators here in New York. You know, obviously in connection with the Cuomo nursing home scandal. So she had an amazing sit down with them, and I was able, you know, to watch the whole interview, and I just thought like, wow, she's gonna do amazing things. If it's not with, you know, my network, it's gonna be somewhere else. And so I think she's definitely a rising star in the news business.
Last question. You're a Latina at the top of the news business. What advice would you give to other Latinas looking to break into the news business?
Take any job. Like, no matter what it is, you never know in this business where it's going to take you. When I was in college, I thought, you know, I'm going to do print. I'm going to work for a magazine. I'm going to be a magazine writer. And I ended up doing internships in writing with magazines and never did, you know, other jobs, and never thought, oh, maybe I should go do the other internships like in TV or radio. I ended up working in both. So right out of college, I worked in TV, I worked in radio. So I always say, like, take all the internships, do it all, because you never know in this business where it's going to take you. I never thought I'd work in radio, and I loved my time in radio. You learn so much from every area that you find yourself in this industry, whether it's in print, whether it's radio, whether it's broadcast, in now podcasting, you know, what have you. So you can learn and make so many connections in all these different areas. So do it all, especially when you're young.
Got it. Erenia Teresa Michell, is there anything else that you want to tell our Meet La Prensa audience tonight?
No, other than thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Thank you so much for coming. Please come back and see us soon. And audience, you can find Erenia's Twitter handle in the description for this video. We hope that if you like this video and others like it, you will hit subscribe